Mingho, a 39-year-old doctor, is known among his colleagues and patients as a man full of love and compassion. For many years, he has quietly paid medical expenses out of his own pocket for patients who couldn't afford them. He often works late into the night just to treat a few more people. His kindness extends beyond his job. In life, he is also a caring friend who never hesitates to lend a helping hand and offer support when others are in need. A year ago, at a high school reunion, Mingho reunited with Meng Meng, a classmate he hadn't seen for many years. Meng Meng was deeply moved by Mingho's kindness and selflessness, and the two soon fell in love. Over the next 5 months, their relationship grew stronger, and Mingho felt that he had finally met the love of his life. However, fate can be cruel. On the eve of proposing to Meng Meng, a routine physical examination completely changed the course of his life. The results showed that he had advanced pancreatic cancer, with an estimated life expectancy of less than a year. The diagnosis hit Mingho like a bolt of lightning. He fell into deep despair, not knowing how to face his parents and younger sister, and even less how to tell Meng Meng such a devastating truth. The man who had always brought hope to others now felt utterly helpless. After several days of inner struggle, Mingho decided to face this ordeal alone. He didn't want to burden his girlfriend, so he lied, saying that the hospital had temporarily assigned him to work in another city for 3 months. Meng Meng, busy with her own job, didn't think much of it and accepted his explanation with understanding. They agreed to stay in touch through regular video calls. Mingho also made arrangements for his parents. He left them a sum of money, explaining that he had to work in another city for about 3 months. He asked them to take good care of themselves and promised to call home often. Though his parents were reluctant to see him go, they didn't suspect anything. At the airport, his parents and Meng Meng came together to see him off. After they left, Mingho could no longer hold back his tears. He couldn't bear to face the people closest to him, so he chose to leave temporarily for 3 months, partly to adjust his emotions and partly to actively cooperate with his treatment at the hospital. Deep down, he still held on to a glimmer of hope, praying that a miracle might happen after those 3 months. When he arrived in the new city, Mingho checked into a hotel he had booked in advance. The moment he closed the door behind him, his heart sank completely. Overwhelmed by pain and fear, he fell into deep despair. It felt as if all strength had left his body. He collapsed heavily onto the bed, tears streaming uncontrollably down his face. Mingho felt that fate was unbearably unfair. As a doctor, he had saved countless lives and helped many patients and friends. So why was it him who had to suffer from cancer? He had never asked for gratitude. All he ever wanted was to live an ordinary, peaceful life, to stay healthy, get married, and have children. Yet even such a simple wish seemed to be too much to ask from fate. As resentment and despair tangled in his heart, Mingho eventually drifted into a deep sleep. Having worked long hours at the hospital for years, he rarely had proper rest, and this time he slept for 5 or 6 hours straight. When he finally woke up, the pain and despair were still there, clinging to him like a shadow. He missed his girlfriend and parents terribly, but in his current state, he couldn't bring himself to face them. He couldn't pretend that nothing had happened, not in front of the people he loved most. Mingho slept for nearly 2 days in the hotel, feeling completely drained, without even the strength to get out of bed. He wasn't particularly sleepy, but he couldn't bring himself to do anything either. It wasn't until the second night that he finally felt a hint of hunger. Early the next morning, he forced himself to go downstairs to the hotel restaurant, ate a little, and then returned to his room. When he checked his phone, he saw that both his parents and Meng Meng had sent him many messages, asking if he had arrived safely. During the past 2 days, he had been half-conscious, doing nothing, and hadn't replied to anyone. Not wanting them to worry, Mingho forced himself to send a short message saying he'd been busy performing surgeries and hadn't had time to respond. After sending those messages, Mingho suddenly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. As a doctor, he knew all too well how difficult pancreatic cancer was to treat. At that moment, he fell into deep hesitation. He wasn't sure if he should go to the hospital for treatment. On one hand, he knew how important it was to seek medical help in time. On the other hand, he was terrified of facing the harsh reality. Going to the hospital meant admitting that he was truly sick, enduring painful treatments, and confronting an uncertain future. The pain grew more intense, and Mingho curled up on the bed, drenched in cold sweat. Regret washed over him. Facing this illness alone was far harder than he had imagined. He desperately wished someone could be there with him, to comfort and encourage him. Tears welled up once more as Mingho felt an overwhelming loneliness and helplessness. He thought of Mengmeng's warm smile and his parents' loving eyes. He began to question whether he had made the right decision. Perhaps he should have told them the truth and let them accompany him through this difficult time. Just as he was caught in this painful struggle, his phone suddenly rang. It was a video call from Mengmeng. Mingho hesitated, unsure whether to answer. He feared that Mengmeng might notice something wrong, yet he longed to see her face and hear her voice. In the end, Mingho didn't answer the call. About 5 minutes later, he sent her a message explaining that he'd been busy. Mengmeng asked why he hadn't replied to her messages for so many days. Was he really that busy? Mingho didn't give much of an explanation, simply replying that he had a lot of work to do. Such a brief response filled Mengmeng's heart with doubt and unease. She began to wonder if Mingho had found someone else, if he no longer loved her, or if he was lying about his work to meet another woman. She wanted to confront him and get a clear answer, but then realized she didn't even know exactly which city Mingho had gone to. As confusion and worry consumed her, Mengmeng suddenly remembered that Mingho often used her email when booking hotels. Clinging to a sliver of hope, she quickly checked her inbox, and sure enough, she found the detailed information about the hotel Mingho had booked. Mengmeng made a snap decision. She secretly bought a plane ticket and decided to go to the city where Mingho was supposedly on a work assignment to see for herself what was going on. She soon located the hotel where Mingho was staying, her heart filled with both anticipation and anxiety, unsure of what she was about to face. All of this happened without Mingho's knowledge. At that very moment, he was still alone in his hotel room, enduring both physical pain and emotional torment, completely unaware that Mengmeng was already on her way to find him. When Mengmeng arrived at the hotel, she asked the receptionist if there was a guest named Mingho. For privacy reasons, the receptionist refused to answer. Mengmeng then explained that she was his girlfriend and gave his full name, Guo Mingho. The receptionist, following hotel policy, asked her to provide his ID number, which Mengmeng quickly recited. After verifying the information, the receptionist called Mingho to confirm whether he knew a woman named Lu Mengmeng. Realizing it was his girlfriend, Mingho agreed to let her come upstairs. When Mengmeng entered the room and saw Mingho, she was stunned. He hadn't washed his face or brushed his teeth in days, and he looked completely exhausted. By then, Mingho's abdominal pain had slightly eased, and he decided to tell her the truth. Upon hearing everything, Mengmeng broke down in tears, heartbroken and furious that he had kept such a thing from her. She threw her arms around him, holding him tightly. Between sobs, she told him that she would never leave him, that she would stay by his side, support him through treatment, and look forward to their future together, their marriage, and their children. Though Mingho knew deep down that such dreams were unlikely to come true, Meng Meng still firmly believed that as long as there was love, anything was possible. Meng Meng helped Mingho tidy up the room and assisted him in washing up. Then she took out her phone and contacted the hospital where Mingho had previously worked. His colleagues, upon learning that he had cancer, finally understood why he had suddenly resigned. Because Mingho had always been a dedicated and compassionate doctor, deeply respected and loved by both colleagues and hospital leaders, the hospital decided to provide him with free treatment. Under Meng Meng's gentle persuasion, Mingho agreed to return to the hospital for treatment. After a thorough examination, the doctors scheduled him for surgery. To everyone's relief, the operation turned out to be unexpectedly successful. However, about a year later, Mingho's abdominal pain returned, eerily similar to the symptoms he had experienced before. He went to the hospital alone for tests, and his worst fears were confirmed. The pancreatic cancer had relapsed. This time, Mingho chose to spend his remaining days at home, unwilling to live out the rest of his life in the cold sterility of a hospital. Though Meng Meng refused to give up, searching tirelessly online for every possible treatment, both Western and traditional Chinese medicine, Mingho's condition continued to deteriorate. Each day his body grew weaker, and the unrelenting pain stripped away every trace of hope and expectation. Finally, on a quiet night, Meng Meng got up to use the bathroom and gently touched Mingho's hand, only to find that his body had grown cold. Mingho had passed away peacefully in his sleep. The ending wasn't as beautiful as a fairy tale, but in his final days, Mingho felt the warmth of true love and the unwavering companionship of the woman who never left his side.